right, it is now 6 o'clock. We'll start the working session. Everyone here who's going to be here, so looks like the audit report's ready to go from Brady Martz and Associates.
Okay.
Perfect. I'll take it away.
Yep, go ahead.
All right. Thank you for having me this evening. I am Sarah, audit manager with Brady Martz, and I believe you guys received a draft PDF of the financial statements. I'm just going to go over some highlights from that, not all 60, 70 pages. So, but if you have questions as I'm going through, please stop me and let me know. First, this is a draft that we are issuing right now. It's in our quality review process. I do expect it to come out of that, and we should be submitting to the state this week. I don't anticipate any changes to the numbers, so we thought it was safe to go ahead and review tonight. We'll start on page 2. That's the independent auditor's report. The district received a clean opinion, so we believe that your financial statements are fairly stated in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. The next section is management's discussion and analysis. I just wanted to highlight a couple pages, couple tables on page 10. So the first one is your general fund revenue. So it's just a year-over-year comparison. Your general fund revenues were up $654,000 this year over last year, and your general fund expenses were down $213,000. So overall, a positive impact compared to last year. On page 16 is a summary of your revenues, expenses, and changes in fund balance. So your general fund decreased this year by $156,726 and ended the year with a fund balance of $680,322. And then we also present your debt service fund on this statement. That decreased $13,879 and ended the year with a fund balance of $224,000. I'm going to skip over the notes to the financial statements. That's probably the next 30 pages. That just details out information on the district's capital assets, long-term debt, and a lot of it is on pension and OPEB. So I'm going to go to page 41. That's a budgetary comparison schedule. So the district had budgeted to be down about $211,000 this year, and you came in with a deficit of $156,000. So overall, a very accurate budget, which is nice to see. On page 48, we have your food service and community service funds. Your food service was able to make a slight profit this year. Fund balance increased $14,288. And your community service had a large increase. Fund balance increased $257,000. The reason for the increase is a transfer in, and that comes from your pool levy. So that's why that fund increased this year. On the next page, page 49, this details the components of the district's fund balance. So a portion of your general fund balance is restricted by the state. So you have to spend those balances in accordance with statute. The largest ones being your operating capital fund balance at $187,000 and your long-term facility maintenance at $258,000. As of June 30th, 2024, the district's unassigned fund balance is actually negative. So you ended the year with a negative unassigned balance of $177,000. I also wanted to highlight on here your school readiness fund balance, which is also reporting a deficit of $137,000. It's common for that program to not make money and need to be subsidized from the general fund. So we do recommend that the district develop a plan to eliminate that deficit within the next couple of years. the numbers I really wanted to go over. The next are just some reports that we also report on in addition to the financial statement opinion. We give an opinion on Minnesota legal compliance, so we can look at things like whether the district complied with bid and quote requirements, maintained sufficient collateral, and we had no findings to report as a result of those procedures. On page 51 is our report over internal controls over financial reporting. So we do have a couple findings that we issued in accordance with this report, which are very common for a small district, and I believe you've received them in the past. The first one is related to segregation of duties. You guys have a small business office, so this is a very common finding. It's just saying that one person might be responsible for multiple elements of a transaction cycle. So we just ask that you have maintain your mitigating controls over this risk, such as superintendent reviewing journal entries and the Board of Education reviewing disbursements. It's not economically feasible for you to hire more people in your district's business office, so those mitigating controls are what we ask that you do. The second one is related to financial statement prep. Again, very common for a small district. These financial statements for governments are intense. There's a lot of information, so it's very common to have the auditors assist with the preparation. Mitigated controls is just that the business manager and the superintendent review the financial statements before we sign them and issue them. The third finding on page 55, this is a new one for your district this year. It's related to meal claim reimbursements. So when we were calculating what we estimated the revenue to be in the food service fund, we came up short and worked with the business office and discovered that some of the October 2023 meals were not reported to the state. I do believe Jill has been working with MDE to get that corrected, so I do believe you will receive your reimbursement, but we recommend that you implement some procedures over that monthly submission, including a second review. We issued a separate letter related to the district's fund balance. Like I said, the unassigned fund balance is actually negative as of June 30th, 2023, and it was negative last year as well. The district is not an SOD yet, but if your trend continues where you are spending more money than you receive in, it won't be long before you would be instead SOD, statutory operating debt. That occurs when your negative fund balance is 2% of your expenditures. So we just put together a little table here showing your unrestricted fund balance and the SOD calculation. So this year you're at 1.27%. I realize that it's difficult for a district to raise money or cut costs. So I think it's important that you guys are monitoring your budget, being conscious of controlling costs to try to keep that deficit down or eventually start to increase your fund balance on an annual basis. We didn't see any concerns. Like I said, your budget came in very close to actual for the district, so I do believe you do a nice job of budgeting. It'll just be important going forward that you can get to a balanced budget or one where you're actually projecting your fund balance to increase. Any questions for me?
I have one, Tim Lyon. We go over this every time we get audited, regardless of whether it's your firm or another, but you say small schools, you're not going to hire somebody to for those internal controls. You know, it's just a difficult one. And the suggestion always is, you know, the superintendent, the business manager need to communicate more. I mean, are there other tangible things you can do other than, you know, throw the charge in their lap? I mean, is there something the board should be doing to make that actually happen more?
So I think from a board's perspective, the two big things that you can do is actively review that disbursement listing that the business manager is giving you on a monthly basis. Ask questions, make sure that those are valid expenditures and ones that you had anticipated in your budget. And then also monitoring your budget to actual comparisons. That doesn't necessarily have to be on a monthly basis, but I do think it should be on a quarterly basis. A lot of time and effort go into that budget to make sure that it's accurate. So to review it, to make sure that things are coming in line is a good control to make sure that your revenues or expenses are where you thought they would be. Is there anything else?
Well, give me a second, just because there are a couple other things I marked here on the sheet as you went through, but I just got to find my spot there. I mean, I'm trying to remember the number, but how close were we, I'm looking for the page, how close were we in terms of hitting budget? What was the discrepancy? Do you remember?
Yep, so I think that was page 41. So and I just highlighted the total here. So revenues under expenses, you guys had budgeted to be down $211,000, and you came in better than what you anticipated. You were down $156,000, so a difference of $54,000 on a $7 million expenditure budget is very accurate.
So, I mean, the suggestion again is, and I'm going to be paranoid about this, is that yes, we're good at keeping our books, but in terms of our initial thoughts about what we should spend, not what we will spend, but what we should spend, we're still in error as a board and an administration. I mean,
I do believe that your goal should be to work towards a balanced budget at the least, and then eventually start to have a positive increase in your fund balance is what you should be budgeting for. Like I said, right now the district's not in SOD, but you are approaching it, and I mean, it's not the end of the world, but it is costly for a district, costly and time consuming for a district to go through the SOD procedures. There's a lot of reporting to the state. So if you could stay out of that and improve your financial position, it would, just be less time, less energy for the board and the district staff.
okay, so as long as you reference that, the SOD, it always looms on the horizon, like a black cloud. You hear about it, oh, this district's in it, this one's, but you're telling us specifically the costs are a reporting cost, or where else would you incur costs as a district if you slipped into that?
It is reporting costs. So there is an extensive spreadsheet and reporting process that you have to do to the state annually if you enter SOD, and they monitor and approve that plan to see if you have actual procedures or ideas to get the district out of SOD. We do audit a couple districts that have entered it, and they engaged with a consultant to prepare their plan. So that's where the added cost came in addition to the time and resources that the actual business manager, superintendent, and board had to dedicate to putting that together.
Who demands the consultant? Is that just a choice, or is that something the state says?
It's a choice.
And is that determined by the yearly audits end, or is that on an ongoing, let's watch this basis over the course of month by month?
The actual SOD calculation is determined when audited data is submitted to the state of Minnesota. So that's just a once a year thing.
Okay.
Anyone else? I think that's it for questions on this part.
Okay, sounds good. If you guys do have questions throughout the year, Jeff and Sheena have my contact information. I'd be happy to field any that you have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys must have discussed that. Did you see this before the meeting in your finance committee?
Yep.
Okay. So you had some of those concerns or thoughts? I mean, the SOD word always, it's like, swearing in church kind of thing, but haven't heard that, recently, and just wondering.
I don't remember what we were predicting a budget surplus this year, but what was it?
336,000.
Oh, for this school, this
Yes.
coming. I was
This
just
coming
gonna
fiscal.
pull up my, the budget.
Based on the cuts that were made. And is that including any, have you done now with the add backs and that sort of thing and done a reconfiguration on
We
that?
need to revise it in Jan. We'll come back
As
and
far as
revise.
add backs, should be very minor,
Okay,
a part-time position, so
Okay.
far, which hasn't
But
even.
we'll,
you will
with the
look at
final
that, yeah,
audit
now that you have that,
report, then
yeah.
we'll go back and
Okay.
revise it again in Jan.
So it'll look a little more optimistic?
I think so.
Oh, yes, yes. Much better than even this last 2024.
Are they aware of that during the course of this? I mean, do you guys have conversations that sort of segue into that?
Yep, so, over the, they'll actually pull reports and look at our budget and our actual and just ask us, the difference in the discrepancies, and then they're like, okay, what are you doing in the future to just help take care of this issue? So we've been communicating on it, and they know all the cuts we've made. And we knew that going into this we'd be very close to being an SOD, but we did celebrate last week when, we submit several times to the state and we missed it. And that just shows that the board did a great job and Jeff did a great job making all the cuts necessary to put us where we need to be. And now I feel like, now this year with our budget, it's looking even better. We're just gonna keep moving forward and building our unassigned fund down. To me, it was very positive. We've made, over $1 million in cuts the last 2 years. Which, yeah, it really stinks, but it's exactly what needed to happen to just help us move forward.
Yeah, and not doubting your guys' efforts or knowledge on it, but it's nice. It sounded like she was, you could hear it in her voice, she was rooting for us. And I wonder if she offers advice, because she must see this in dozens of school districts where she says, maybe it's not as simple as, do you really need that? Or this would be a good spot to maybe, think about making some cuts, or this is where you could, conglomerate something, or.
I've actually worked with Sarah with Brady Marks for many years, and I thought the audit went great. They're awesome to work with, and I feel like I can ask questions, and I gladly accept their feedback. Just with an audit, it's their job to come in and find things and dig, and I appreciate any feedback to help us do a better job.
Yeah, I just don't
That's
know
what they're here for.
what questions you ask of her, like, where would you go with this, or what would you do? Don't want to sound like a layman in there, but, that's somewhat new ground. Like I said, we hadn't really talked realistically about SOD, so it's nice to hear you offer that optimism. She's talking a little more realistically, okay, you're teetering. Time to rebound.
Yeah, so I did provide the SOD, the calculation from last year. And we knew even coming into this year that it would decrease and we'd be even closer to SOD. But,
You were still picking up on stuff that we were spending even last January, February.
yeah, so keep in mind, so I started, it was like June 2022. By the time we got caught up and the audit was completed, it was January, I want to say. So by that time, we were already halfway through the next year, and we we're like, oh no, we need to make cuts. Well, we can't make them this year. So then we went and we made all these cuts in 1 year.
Yeah. And it is nice to hear this in November, when you've got a little bit of room available to you, or a little bit of response available.
Yeah, Brady Marks was very proactive getting our portal set up. So Jill and I were able to jump in and start working on it before the audit. They audited us for 3 days. We didn't hear much from them because everything's in the portal, so they just come and dig in and ask questions, and we'd email back and forth. And after the 3 days are up, they're working on other schools, but they're good at communicating back and forth. But they're really good at getting things wrapped up quickly and efficiently. I was very happy with their service, I think. From what I've heard everyone else is, and
I had a question on the, I can't find it now, I thought I wrote it down, but there was a negative fund balance in ECF, early
the
child.
school readiness.
School
School
readiness.
readiness, yeah.
Which is
And
now
they
what we
said-
call VPK, right?
So
Make a
we-
plan to fix or remedy.
So school readiness is in Fund 4, and we've been using, we get our VPK revenue in Fund 1. So we just, basically, we're taking revenue and just shifting it to cover.
VPK is voluntary pre-kindergarten. It's all the same group of kids, just,
They're all in one room, it's just
yes,
how
with
the
multiple
funding-
sources of funding.
Yeah.
VPK, for the TV listeners, voluntary pre-kindergarten. Same class, same group of students, different sources of funding. So school readiness and VPK. And I also have a VPK update in my presentation. I mean,
Yeah, there's some significant changes.
significant
and
changes
We're gonna be
that,
looking
that
at
will impact the funding structure.
moving to more of a fee base where we have many.
Because it was
fees.
137.
It was 143 the previous year, and it's 137 this
And that's coming.
last fiscal year.
There's really
So it
not,
actually went down a little bit, but not very much. And we've done some reductions in that program. Like we have
Yeah,
one
for
less
this
para.
year, we, reduced a para, so we have one less para in that room.
And just how we coded too, like, we get more
Right.
VPK revenue, so we're like, well, we'll just code most of the teacher to Fund 1. So it's just balancing what's actually happening. So it's just not calculated wrong, so.
So when you get money in two different funds, that's what, that, it doesn't appear, 137 is, it's still in the red or in the black. It's still not a good number, but it's, you gotta put all of the Fund 1 and Fund 4 stuff together. And the three of us are gonna work on a document that will show that, because you're crossing funds in a way that some things are canceling each other out. It just gets a little messy, so.
so that kind of answers, because you
Yeah.
said get a plan in place, and it sounds like you are.
Working on it.
And Sam did look at this fiscal year, and we are fine this fiscal year.
Yeah, it might not be zero, but it's definitely gonna be closer.
Plus, we're factoring the pathways dollars too.
Yes, which is another
Is
$15,000.
another funding source, so.
Yeah.
Any more questions about the audit? Going once, going twice. We'll move on to citizens forum. Anything for the citizens forum?
Can I make a suggestion? Would you all be willing to move your
So moved. Do I have to second your motion?
No, we're in session.
Right.
Your request is granted. Although receiving assignments are all messed up now.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Gene was good.
Okay, one last time for citizens forum. We'll go on to board committees, school forest.
Yeah, I got the notes from School Forest. There's a budget discrepancy, balance of $22,699 in there in the School Forest, as opposed to the $31,000 we had at the end of last year, so we're tracking down some money there again, trying to be a little more proactive in terms of just paying attention to our numbers, but that seems to be a number we sit on. We did sell some timber last year, which is why that sounds like a decent amount of money. Those of you who have attended a lot of school board meetings remember us talking about $5,000 and $8,000 balances, so there's a little more in there, but kind of, and that's why each meeting we say the public has some ideas what they'd like to do with their school forest. You can see the storybook trail set out there where we put up the loafing shed. We've, tried to, we've got some cross-country skis, so we're making investments, but there is still some money there, and it's not something that we're necessarily happy to sit on. So if you got a good idea, bring it to the school forest committee. We talked about tax classifications, which sounds pretty dry, but the school still has a few pieces of property left scattered around the community, not a lot. Some of those, and I guess you were gonna get on that at some point here this next month, but some of those are being taxed and some of those aren't. I think our understanding is school property generally is a tax exempt situation.
As long as it's used for public use.
And-
And there's 3 parcels that we're paying taxes on. One is a little over an acre. Then there's a,
120 and a 20, right?
yeah, well, I
Was
don't
the
know.
1
if
acre
it's-
one the
was
one
it
downtown?
60,
No, it's up
40. No,
By
it's,
Rocky Point.
yeah,
Oh.
it's access to state land, and then there's the swamp chunk.
I think
wanna
those
say
are the
that's-
only two.
And the other one just south
And then
of the school
there's,
here.
then
from
the
house.
field south of the baseball field.
Yep.
And that one, I'm guessing, would not meet the public piece, because at one time we charged rent for it. We are no longer charging rent for it, so those are the 3 pieces that I'll go in and go to the courthouse and see what we need to do to reclassify them, or the district may look at selling them.
Off or whatever.
Right now, they're not used for school forest and stuff like that, so.
I know at one point we had talked about swapping that one swamp 40 with
Yep.
something
And
usable.
DNR, no one's interested in swapping. So, but it might sell, it butts up to some state land, I believe, so might be some value to it, but I don't think the district wants to maintain that tax impact, so. February sticks out of my mind as the deadline for submitting this to the auditor to get it, or the assessor, I mean, to get the reclassification. And at the same time, we'll reclassify or other school property and school forests that are not being taxed right now, so.
Do you guys happen to know how much revenue was from the timber sale was brought in?
I've got a round number at about $20,000 to $25,000, somewhere in that vicinity.
I don't know.
But that would be Becky Lean would have that
Okay.
number.
We could bring
That's-
that information back to another board meeting.
If that's a ballpark, that sounds,
No, I think they
Yeah, it's
work
pretty
pretty
good.
well when you get timber sales. It's not a bad deal.
Because we, a few years
There
ago.
might be some grants muddled in there too.
Yeah.
So, but we can run revenue and expenditure reports and match it up and stuff, so.
And we've cleaned up that a little bit. I don't know if that's a school forest motivation or just general school, but get, properties that are available to the school to do with, and I think what was the tax burden that you were talking about total? Was it $500 for those pieces of property?
One was $6. I should have brought it with me. There was a discrepancy on the
On the counties.
swamp one. It was
Yeah.
like 400 on the county side. The recent tax statement was 200 and something.
But we're we're not talking like really valuable pieces of property. When we talk about the swamp, I think it is 120 in there and 80, but the value of it was, I think they were looking at
Seemed to me the.
$250, $300 an acre is what they valued it at. So it's obviously just a swamp piece in there.
I may be remembering this wrong. I thought the swamp one was like a 40 acres, and then I thought timbered, is that 120
bigger than
by the stuff by Blueberry Hill?
That's like,
That's school forest.
yeah, that's
Okay.
Williams. Yeah, there's probably.
There's a 128 piece that's not necessarily designated school forest, but it's designated public use under school, so.
That's up by the
Yeah.
west of County Road 6 there.
Yeah.
That's,
Oh, yeah, I know where that one's at. Okay. Anything else for school forest? And we'll move into superintendent's report.
So I had an error on my report with the enrollment. We're currently at 423. We're down 6 students since October. But basically, those 6 kids are within 2 families. We had 2 students move back to Montana with their family, and then we had 4 students that moved to Fargo. So that's enrollment. I sent out information, and it's also on the agenda under written communication. If any of you would like to run for Joint Powers Board member for Region 1, you have, I think till the end of this week to let me know to fill out the candidate documentation on that, so. Staffing update, last month we talked about the part-time custodial hire. Tonight we're recommending hiring Jonathan Mesenbrink, and he was working over the summer with that part-time position, so recommend that hire. And then I'm not gonna do all the coaches and stuff, I'll let Sam do that. And then the bus driver recommendation, adding that to my duties. I do have to clarify, in my contract, my superintendent contract, it refers to the possibility of this. And it stated step 1 at 2306. That's inaccurate. 2306 is accurate, but it's step 3. So you have to decide if you want to start me off at step 1, or if you allow me to do that, or step 3. Past practice has been, with the bus situation, we can offer up to step 3 for people that have been subbing or with little experience, to get them started at $23 an hour. That's to stay competitive.
If memory serves, we've been starting everybody at step 3 who's been new, yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
so I'm not asking to be treated any different than any other new bus hire. Any questions on that?
is this a long-term?
Probably, well, the way that our busing situation is, it could be.
Or do you think you're gonna keep advertising?
We have some other coming close to retirement, so I think it's just gonna be a challenge.
We're in permanent advertising, aren't we? Just about?
Bus sub is on there all the time.
Yeah.
So. And I don't think it'll impact the rest of my position. I mean, the morning route, I'm here I better be here by a little bit before 8 o'clock or the kids are late. The after school, usually I can get back here by 5:30. So as much as I can is schedule meetings at 5:30. And John's full aware that if I have a meeting or something comes up, he's got to have someone ready to take that afternoon route. That's a sub, so.
And just to be clear, he's not taking anybody's spot. If we could find a full-time bus driver, I'm sure you'd be happy to give up your the position, the full-time position.
Sleep in till 6 o'clock. But I actually enjoy driving the bus. It's nice to see the kids in different light. So Not ideal, but that's what we do in a small school district, so. Any questions with that? And then the last thing I have, or I got two more things, the school board handbook, I'm still working on getting that up and ready for onboarding with the new board members. I did share that document. I haven't put any new stuff in there, but if you can't open it up, let me know. One thing I am recommending for you to consider is with our finance committee, I'm suggesting that we make that meeting part of the working session with the full board. And we would start our working session at 5:30. We'd have to organize and stay on time with the rest of the items so we're done by 7. But I think 30 to 45 minutes on budget and finance, and then the rest of our reports on our working session is doable. That way it's completely transparent to have those discussions, and as Sarah just talked about, that gives all the board members a chance to review all our expenditures, ask questions on what checks are being spent. So I will be recommending that we do that. I bring it up now with this board, if we want to start it in December or wait till January with the final. But I would like to put that in the handbook on that part of our process. So any feedback you have on that?
We could start next month. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just to clarify, the expenditures and the checks and all that have always been available to all board members. And it was usually in the electronic version of the packet, because it's like 100 sheets of paper if you were to print it out.
Yeah. But this will be an opportunity for, when she's presenting, there's always questions on certain budgeting and school finance in Minnesota that probably everyone should hear up front. So I think it'll be a good move.
And we had talked a little bit about this at the finance committee, about maybe doing, if you still kept a finance committee, but meet quarterly and focus more on budgets.
On the budget,
or,
kind of like what Sarah was just saying, is that having that quarterly meeting to review the budget and stuff like that, and report that back to the whole board. So
that would be an option as well, but I do think it's a really good idea to pull a lot of this stuff into the regular meeting.
Yep. And the last thing I have is we have meet and confer scheduled for tomorrow night at 5:30. Mr. Hack will be attending. You're not able to attend. We can do it with one board member, or if there's one other board member that would like to attend the meet and confer meeting tomorrow night. And that's just a communication piece that we do with the teachers group. They can bring concerns or questions on what we can do to make the school better. So
I can't.
if there's anyone that wants to attend it, otherwise the two of us will take it on. But
What time is it at?
5:30.
I don't know if I can make that.
I can't.
Now you make it.
Okay.
If Robin can make it, that'd be even better, but if you can't, I can make it.
I have a commitment, but I'll see what I can do. I don't
No
know.
pressure last minute, so, but, okay. That's all I have, unless there's questions.
Question, Jeff?
Yep.
On your enrollment for November 1, 2024, you're showing 423 total, and then 231 and 196. That adds up to 427. What's the discrepancy there?
That, my math is the discrepancy on that.
Okay.
So, yes. So we're down 3.
I will correct that discrepancy.
Yes, yep. Yep, we're down 3 in the elementary, and we're down 2, or we're down 4 in the elementary. I did a really bad job of proofing this. We're down 6 total. First grade, we're down 1, third grade, we're down 1, second grade,
So we haven't talked about it. Yeah.
5th grade, 6th grade. So actually in the elementary, we're down 5, and we're down 1 in the 8th grade. But the total is 6 students. You were in my office when I was asking you
Yeah,
about
but
some of
sixth
these.
grade goes with the high school.
That's
so it
why
is
I
4
keep
and
messing
2.
up. Okay. So it's 4 and 2. I can email you the total enrollment number.
You could, thank you.
So, yep. Yep.
We haven't really talked about the results of the election and
Okay.
referendum. And maybe now is not a great time, but,
Well, we have made budget cuts. So right now the plan is to continue on with this year's budget as planned with what we've budgeted for. I think when we get into January, we'll need to get all the new board members up to date on the conditions and the reasons for going out for the referendum. I've talked to Matt Hammer at Ellers, and he's willing to come up at any time and report or present to the school board. I've met with Donovan Group, and they're willing to come back, and if we need to do more surveys or look into what we can do differently. I've talked to Kraus Anderson, they're willing to come up and visit with some board members. I talked to Tracy Polk today, and they've kind of done what he called as an autopsy on the referendum, on looking at trying to come up with a rationale why it failed and what things can be changed to address that. So it's hard to make any decisions now with, having quite a bit of turnover on the board. So I think when we get into January, February is when we're going to look at budgets, needs, and re-engage with the community as far as our facility needs, because that's not going to change. As far as our general fund balance, I think it's going to be a strain moving forward, because we haven't budgeted in adding back purchasing of computers. We'll have to look at our bus purchases coming up, and I think our transportation, we're looking at 2027 last time we talked for a new bus.
This school year, not the next school year, but the school year after.
Yeah. So.
finding a way to pay for that
Yep.
with the
Come up with a plan with what we have, or deciding if we go back to the voters at some point, but.
Yeah. Thank you.
Did I address everything you wanted to?
Yeah, I just,
Okay. Yep.
that things are kind of intentionally at a lull, but you are
Oh, yeah, I've reached out.
reaching
Yep.
out, yeah.
And I think the biggest thing is to educate people on where we're at and why we're there and options for progressing through, so. That's all I have.
Okay. If that's all you got, we'll go on to Mary Burchin, principal of everything.
Good evening. World's Best Workforce Report now gets put into Title I, so I have submitted that, and after the board meeting, it'll go into MDE, which Jeff submits into them. And then this is the last year that it'll be World's Best Workforce. They are switching that, and they have not determined what the new document's going to look like yet, but what I can determine what they're looking at, the big difference, because it's adding achievements in there, but that's part of World's Best Workforce, but it's adding a civic readiness, and the one component that will be new is setting a goal for lifelong learners. So that will be something looking at with the staff and the committee. Once MDE determines the document, then we'll need to pick a goal for that. Our American Indian Education Committee met. We have funding for this year, so it's $44,050. Base is $40,000 for 20 students, and then it is $50 for each additional student above that. And when we met, activities for the year have been looked at. We are going to have an all-school powwow on December 10th. We are going to have an author from North Dakota, Mark Mint, come and spend 3 days with our students in January. And what was the other big one? Oh, Dan Ninham, who a couple years ago came and worked with both elementary and high school students with Indigenous games. That was a really big hit. So we will have 2 days with Dan coming back and working with our students. And then looking at sending a group of staff to the MIEA convention, which is in March. Mrs. Crandall, so our media specialist, who works with all our elementary students weekly, she has really gone above and beyond and embraced bringing Native American culture to the kids, and will do, is working on Ojibwe language with them and words, and I think last week it was a whole complete sentence with, I think I need to sit in on every session so I use them frequently enough. And then she's looking at doing some different kind of crafty type activities with them, so really looking forward to that. And then after the meeting, Boyd, I'm gonna need your signature on the concurrence document that they've signed, so I will submit that to the American Ed group tomorrow. Band concert was last week. Absolutely phenomenal, the job that our students do. So this was the first time 6th grade was added with our 7th through 12th grade. So really a nice full night of music and a lot of solos that came into play. And I think something that really shows how our students shine is they had competition, I think it was a week or a week and a half ago, and our senior high kids got superiors. The couple that got excellent only missed superior by 1 point, so that is just amazing. And then we have junior high kids who are going to be judged. They don't get scored with points, but they get scored, the judges will give them feedback and stuff, so just such a solid job our kids do. And sitting in that auditorium, you would never realize, especially our senior high band, how small it is because of how strong and solid, and they're just wonderful. And then Wednesday, Tina Lorette, who's our enrichment instructor, she is taking our 7th graders to the Creativity Festival. So that's always a great day for our kids to experience, and Amber Zemke is also going to be one of the chaperones. And that is all I have. Do you have any questions? Okay, thank you.
Oh,
Just a side note on the band, November 11th, Veterans Day,
Yes?
I as a vet would like to thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Very well presented.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And it was the first year that I had the students in front and doing everything, and I didn't have to go up front, so I really appreciate that. Thanks.
all right, we'll go with business office.
Okay, I'll go through our financials through October 31st, 2024. Our state revenues are 23% received, federal revenues 0% received, levy county apportionment 11% received, local revenues are 40% received, food service 9% received, community ed 7% received, total funds for revenue 21%, which is $1,928,127.16. Expenditures, salaries and wages are 20% expended. Employee benefits, 20% expended. Purchase services, 38% expended. Supplies and materials, 23% expended. Capital equipment is 11% expended. Food service, 24% expended. Community ed, 24% expended. All funds, 22% expended, which is $1,953,928.89. We are currently 33% through the school year right now. Just keep in mind, during the summer months, expenditures tend to be down a little bit, but we're very close to budget right now, so it looks really good on my end. Jeff asked me to look up our budget again, so we budgeted to have an expenditures of $8,904,910 and revenues exceeding expenses. So total revenues of $264,507. So revenues will exceed expenditures by $359,597. We budgeted, oh shoot, I just thought I wrote it down. The enrollment, 415 students. Yep, so that's great. We under budgeted our students, so we're still sitting good, and keep in mind, we still, even if they're here for part of the year, we still collect revenue for the months that they were here, so. So just currently through October, we have a deficit of $25,801.73. I wouldn't worry about that. Revenue is delayed the beginning of the school year, especially with county taxes, and so wouldn't worry about that. Right now, it's looking good. Any questions on?
How is that accomplished, that 25,000, the spending deficit? How, are we tapping line of credit on that?
This is just month by month. Oh, actually, I didn't include, so right now, we have plenty of money sitting in the bank. Like, last year, and I'll be honest, we had a hard time making payroll. I was getting money from our liquid asset fund account, trying to transfer in just to meet payroll. We have over $1 million right now, so we're totally fine. We don't have to worry about that. And last year, the main problem was making the bond payment and then waiting for the revenue to come in. We didn't refinance this year, which did help, so we didn't have to make that huge payment, but we have plenty of funds to make payroll.
And those funds are coming because the state has paid off their chunk of things right now. That's where you get that excess, that ability to use that money.
Yeah, it just sits and collects interest. So the more money we have sitting there, the better. But yeah, when we refinance and we have to make a payment for like $900,000 for our bonds, it's just a lot to pay all at once. If we had to do that right now, it would be difficult, but we didn't refinance this year, so. And the revenue comes in throughout the year.
So it goes back to unreserved or unassigned fund balance at 25%, which we think is a lot. It's not. It's probably what we should be striving for as a school district.
When, if you look at this, I mean, in 2020, we were at 23%, and it dropped down to 1% in 4 years. That's all it took.
Part of that was that funding lift that we talked about with COVID and some of those things, and making even out cuts.
So when you talk about like state aid revenue is 23% received, these guys might not all know this. Is that 23% of a certain amount?
Yeah, 23% of what we budgeted for the year.
So where on this stuff is what we budgeted?
Actually, I could run, so, like right here. So I just add together all the state aids. So right here, this is our budget. This is the budget column.
And these are all the different funding numbers?
Yep.
So we have this many, or is there more?
So this is just Fund 1.
Okay. And you have 2 and then 4.
2, 4, and 7. Fund 7 for bonds.
Okay.
Yeah. That redemption. And then at the end of the school year, the state withholds 10%. So we actually didn't get our last 10% until October for the last fiscal year.
Okay, thanks.
No, it's It's a climb.
Well, yeah, I know, I see that.
It's just, it's pushing the rock up the hill and then it comes rolling back in your head and you gotta start all over again.
And it's changes every year. They added, four new finance dimensions this year, and they're adding every year. During COVID, there was quite a bit more.
Who puts the budget numbers together?
I do.
You do?
And Jeff, I mean, we work on it together and figure out what we, and my boss did help too. He came up with, we did a 5-year projection, which we should probably redo again.
That's helpful to look at.
Yeah.
It's always nice to get these audit numbers, because that helps us revise this year's fiscal year and helps us project for next year. So we had a couple years where we were getting this report in January or February, then we're already behind, because we should be revising this fiscal year come January for sure. We want to revise, this is where we're at. We've had to make a few adjustments, and then also by March, I suppose, April, we want to have our budget for next fiscal year. Kind of thinking about that, so.
So I did pull a report on districts that are in SOD. So as of last year, 2023, there were 16 school districts in SOD. Their SOD calculation ranged from -4.19 to -30. So they should, I think when this comes out, I would assume by the spring, once schools complete their audits, so.
Will there be 16 different schools in that list next year, or will it be the 15 are the same and one got out?
Exactly, like a lot of these schools might remain because, I mean, it's going to take them several years to get out of SOD, just to catch up and build up their fund balance again. So many will stay. I would assume a few new ones would be added, just because it's the trend across the state, so.
And
I was just proud that we missed it, and based on our budget this year, it's looking even better. So we shouldn't have to worry about getting closer to SOD. So.
I was going to also mention, we talked about the referendum and the schools in SOD. I think there was, my discussion with Matt today, he said there was like 33 referendum questions, and across the state, 11 of them passed. So it was a tough year for lots of districts to pass referendums, so.
Did Roseville pass?
Nope.
They thought they had one too.
They had one that failed. I believe Grigla passed theirs.
Grigla passed, Thief River passed.
Grigla did theirs in August, though, didn't they?
I would have to, I'm not sure.
High Falls
I posted
passed.
theirs in August, I know that.
Was it August? Yeah.
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 Was it August-ish?
It wasn't Thief River's first go around though, right? Like, had they had a previous one that failed?
They had failed. This is like third attempt
I want
maybe
to say third.
for Thief River. Yep.
And two, I mean, they've had turnover with superintendents too, just because, interims, and I think, Chris Mills has been there for 2 years. I think that makes a big difference.
Built a rapport and.
Yeah.
But if the public's listening, and I hope they are, financially, these cuts that we've made, a lot of them are not sustainable in terms of things like the buses, in terms of things like the computers, our technology. So, I mean, it's not like, yes, it's optimistic that, not flirting, or hopefully not going to flirt with the SOD any longer, but we still got to figure out a way to get some revenue here if we want to keep up to grade on things like our transportation and like our tech work.
Well, the other factor too, and correct me if I'm wrong on my memory of this, that 5-year plan that Todd came up with, there are still more cuts to come in order to increase our balances, because you can't maintain it at this level. I mean, we're at 2%, so you've got to get back to that 25%. In order to do that, there are still more cuts coming. And the sheet's out there, that 5-year plan. and read through the next 5 years, and yeah, there's a lot of cuts.
And two, when I provide this report monthly, this is just talking about money, expenditures and revenues. It doesn't include all the fund balances and set aside money that's in the financial statements, so.
No, at some point, we'll have to play catch up, you know, whether it's with buses or computers or, you know.
So business office update. Glad to be done with our audit. It went great. I was very happy working with Brady Martz, and they met our deadline of June 30th, so that was great. I am working on STAR reporting, which is due December 6th. So STAR reporting is a submission made to the state, which indicates all the classes the teachers are teaching and what codes they're under, and it needs to match be within their licensure area, basically. And then basically all staff are reported, but it mostly just looks at the licensed staff. So, any other questions?
Thank you very much. All right, and last but not least, Sam Lyon.
So a couple of additions, I feel like I do that every time, a couple additions to my list. You'll see first the winter coaching slate, pretty similar to last year. One kind of new addition, Katie Piper's coming back to do JV girls basketball. You'll see that the most significant difference in that list is that it's shorter. So we are reduced one coach in each of those sports. We had 2 junior high coaches in girls basketball last year, a junior high coach in boys basketball last year, and then a 3rd coach in boys hockey last year. So that is, while the athletics or activities section of the budget is not very big, there are things that we can do to contribute to some of that. And some of that is also dictated by numbers. We've got a small boys hockey team this year, small boys basketball team this year. Caden Noga is coaching a 6th and a 7th grade and an 8th grade team for junior high girls. So, with help from Dale and Katie. So both and, driven by numbers and driven by budget. But a good crew nonetheless. I trust all of them a lot. I think they'll do a great job. Before I jump into my really fun stuff with the holiday extravaganza, I'll just touch briefly on the school readiness number. Appreciate you bringing up the 137,000 deficit in school readiness. Just for review, school readiness is our current classroom of 20 students, pre-kindergarten, run by Nicole Gate. She's got one other para, Kyla. Nicole Fiala, my bad. Formerly Nicole Gate. 2 different people, not a name change. And so we have reduced by a para from last year. So that 137 number should change significantly. So we'll see, plus some reductions in general supply spending and things like that, which will be good. It's a funky group, or it's a funky classroom because we get several sources of funding. Voluntary pre-kindergarten, VPK, which is state funded, school readiness, which is state funded, and pathways, which is also state funded. All of which have different requirements in terms of hours that we offer. Some of them are need-based. Pathways is based on specific families who need that, and it's also based on what are your instruction times. It's just kind of it's not a super clean, you have a student and you get $7,500 for it. So, and all of that is to say it's changing next year. So they have changed the VPK funding so that you have to qualify for a certain criteria. Free and reduced lunch, have to have been a student who has been homeless in the last 24 months. I was just looking at this list. There's another one that's a little vague, is deemed at risk by the school district. At risk is a super vague word. And we, as an enrollment team for that group, for that classroom, will have to figure out what's our definition of at risk. likely, we have to run our budget numbers to figure out where this is gonna come out, but it will mean that we're gonna charge some families for pre-K next year. It has to be a sliding scale, so it'll be based on their income, if they don't qualify for one of those things. And then, of course, there's like, if you're on an IEP, or if you have, so there's other pieces and factors to that qualification. But I don't know if you have anything to add to
If I
that.
can interject, the last few years with VPK funding, it was just age-based
Yes,
with no other criteria. And the state legislature put more dollars in it, added more seats, but now they've taken and added, well, it's age-based plus one of the following list, and, whether it's financial. And it used to be, if, with the age base, you had so many seats, but we couldn't charge any other families, if they met the age requirement. So if we had 15 seats, we had 20 kids, we couldn't charge for those 5 extra seats, because all those kids qualified for the number. So now that we got 20 seats, now we're gonna have to look at, a lot of it will be primarily income-based, which Head Start meets that need, and Pathways is part of that needs-based. So what I'm trying to say is, it's gonna be hard to meet the financial needs to run that program without
yes.
charging, which we've been able to not have to do for a number of years. So they say there's more money in it, but I don't know. I think we're gonna lose money, some funding because of the changes, and families are gonna have to pay in.
Yeah, go ahead.
This year, did you turn any kids away for that program? Being that I'm sure 20 is close to your max that you can hold.
Yeah, 20 is our max. We have a really good relationship with Head Start. So we get to the end of the summer, and if Head Start has not been able to fill their spots, they will host VPK kids in their classroom. So meets all of our ratios, meets all of our educational, the classroom experience for Head Start and VPK is nearly identical. And by nearly, I mean, I think they do one extra assessment in the winter that our VPK classroom does not. They do the same assessments, they have a very similar schedule, they ride the buses together, they eat lunch together. I mean, it's just, kid-wise, it's almost identical. Yeah, go ahead.
With the changes, do you anticipate that you'll be able to maintain at 20?
I don't know, because then the question becomes, if a parent has, and this is some of the research that I have to do, if a parent has the choice to either pay the school for their pre-K or continue to stay in a daycare that they feel really good about, they might choose to stay in a daycare because it's less change for their kid, they have a routine set up, so we might lose kids based on that.
We stayed. We stayed
Oh.
with Milo, because
Yeah,
back then we had to pay for it, and we just stayed with the daycare.
right. If you have to pay in both places, there's not really an incentive to get your kid into the school setting.
Do those students in that program, do they count towards the total student population, 415, wherever we're at?
No, I don't count them.
That's separate.
It's separate. But
Because
it's
it's funded.
formula based. It's like 60% of the $7,288,000 that we get. So it's formula based, but we don't count it in our enrollment. We just do K
So-
through.
This is also what's funny though, when we talk about that 137 number is accurate, but it's not, it's a little misleading because it's $137 deficit, or $137,000 in the Fund 4, But when he says we get 60%, that 60% of a full student comes into our Fund 1. So we get that through the state of Minnesota. It is deposited as a Fund 1 account. Stop me if any of this is wrong. So it doesn't actually get tracked against that 137. We do some internal math to make sure that, okay, we're gonna code some of Nicole Fiala's salary to the Fund 1. It just gets, this is where it's messy. So they're not in our enrollment, but we do get money through that. It's just, I have an utmost amount of respect for you and what you keep in your brain.
But the expectation is just like the pool levy comes into the
Right.
general fund and we do the transfer.
Yeah.
So it's expected that those dollars, even though they come into a different fund, need to go to the kids and the programming, so.
So this is a question, and we can do this another point, but that 445,000, that is a transfer, does that include VPK dollars? No, that is strictly pool levy.
That is strictly pool levy,
Yeah,
and
okay.
it's a year behind.
Yeah.
So it was the expenditures from like the prior year.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think if we'll get to the point eventually where we can transfer more money, but this year,
Right.
this was not the year.
Yeah.
Maybe next year, the year after. And in order for the school district to make that transfer, the board has to approve it.
Sure. Okay. Do you have other questions, Craig?
That $137,000 roughly, is that just the deficit from this year, or is that been slowly increasing over
It's
several years?
over several years, I believe. Yeah. Because I think it decreased this last year. I think last year was 143,000 deficit in the fund balance, and it's 136 roughly. So, yep.
The process, and this is why I brought it up, the process for us as we move forward from this is taking the budget. What does it cost for us to run that? What does it cost for us to run that program? And then work backwards for, okay, we get this for revenue, we get this for revenue, what's the number left over? So what do we need to make in whatever form of revenue per student in order to make that a balanced program? And then that can start to influence what we charge. And like I said, it'll be a sliding scale, so it's not like we can set a set amount for every kid, because if you don't make a lot of money, you get less, you have to pay less. And that's a mandate by this new legislation that's changed this program.
We won't be able to know how much money comes in from that until the kids sign up and then you do the process, so you don't, it's.
And what's in even further hard is that, and we all feel strongly about this, is that we work very closely with Head Start, and they similarly have a somewhat slow application process. So I would love for us to know February 1st who's going to be in that class in September, but it is often not until August 15th that I have a really strong concept. I can have an idea in May, but then kids move, parents make different, schooling decisions. People forget to sign up, so now we have a kid in August who's like, we gotta find a spot for this kid. So yes, I appreciate you pointing that out, because I would love for this to be us knowing right now what that program's gonna cost us, or what revenue we're gonna get, but we don't. So, it's a little bit of a gamble.
So, and this is a budget year down at the state, so that would be something I will be lobbying to increase that funding, because I think they went backwards, at least for our district, when they made those legislative changes last year, so.
Yeah. Okay, last thing, most fun thing, we had the holiday extravaganza this past Saturday. Always an incredible event. I say that with a little bit of it's a lot of work for me. We had 57 vendors, up 10 from last year. We had 47 last year. My kind of excitement was the athletic sale. We took a bunch of old jerseys, equipment, all sorts of stuff, and said, let's get it out. So all clothing was $5. We had some old goalie pads and some old golf bags. We made up a little over $1,000. We're going to put that into an activities involvement fund that will be kind of a student activity fund we use for things like a fan bus or the fun activity stuff like that. I think the more significant statistic is that $1,000 translates into at least 200 items of Bears clothing out in the community right now, not to mention all the freebies that we were giving away, as in Jill Olson was selling things off her back and then would say, hey, do you want some shorts? We have more maroon shorts than we know what to do with. Plus all current athletes, if they showed up, got a piece of clothing for free. I mean, the goal on this, yes, we'd like to make some money, but it is to get this stuff out into the community. And there's some old stuff. I mean, we're talking like 90s old stuff. I know, all of us, but I mean, I was impressed. So very excited about the response from that. Several thank yous. One to the custodial staff, Kyle, JD, Woody, who are always incredibly supportive of that, despite it being an immense amount of work for them. I mean, they are here late hours, hearing from me on wacko ideas about things I want to try. So many thanks to them for making it happen. The most, I'm going to get a little emotional about this. Lisa Beckstrand has been a mover and a shaker in the creative process of that event for the last 18 years. We figured out that we think it's 18th year. Without divulging too much, likely her last, given potential retirement. I gotta be a little careful about that, I guess. But she is an incredible colleague in that, always excited to do the decorating and listen to me brainstorm and help me through things that we run across. So I've been very, very grateful to have her as a partner in crime in that event, and just want to say a huge thank you to her. So if you see her, this is to everybody in the room, please tell her thank you. She and Cece Charlton, of course, as well, have made that event what it is, and just really grateful that they put that on for the community, and that I have gotten to be a part of it. That's about it. Any other questions? Cool.
Thanks, Sam. Thank you.
All right, anything else? 7:16, we'll wrap up the working session. Anybody need a break, or you guys want to roll right into the meeting?
I'm good.
None? Jeff, you good?
Yeah, I'm just waiting for you to call the pledge.
Okay. 7:16, we'll bring the meeting to order, and pledge of allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I need a motion and a second to approve the November 25th, 2024 meeting agenda. Any changes before we make this motion? Going once, going twice. Okay, motion's still out there.
I'll make that motion.
Second by Lyon.
Trask, second by Lyon. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Any board presenters? Any written communications? Joint Powers Board Elections Region 1. Okay. Yeah. Anybody interested? Okay. Old business. New business. Need a motion and a second to approve the October 28th, 2024 regular school board meeting minutes and the November 13th, 2024 canvassing meeting minutes.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Sonstagard,
Second by Hack.
second by Hack. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Need a motion and a second to approve the invoices, financial statements, bank reconciliation, wire transfers, and purchase card statement.
Motion by Hack.
Second by Lyon.
By Hack, second by Lyon. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Need approval of personnel appointments. Need a motion and a second to approve the appointments as presented. The appointments are, and I apologize in advance if I butcher anybody's name, Jonathan Messibrick, part-time custodian, Jeff Nelson, bus driver, Ava Hack, lifeguard, Jacob, what he said, lifeguard, Kodiak Doro, lifeguard, winter coaching staff, girls basketball, Dale Brune, varsity coach, Katie Piper, assistant varsity coach, Caden Noga, junior high, for boys basketball, Rylan Hendrickson, varsity coach, Monty Googles, assistant varsity coach, for boys hockey, Brett Nylander, varsity coach, Brandon Story, assistant varsity coach, and Jimmy Clemenson, bus driver.
Motion,
And a second.
motion by Lyon.
Motion by Lyon,
Second by Hack.
second by Hack. Any discussion?
The part-time custodian, is just what that is, part-time. I know that he fit the.
4 hours, as I presented last month, it's a
Yep.
4-hour position, but if he comes in and, like, today he came in and had to move snow, that's on top of that, because that's taken away from our contracted expenses, so. So anything above the assigned 4 hours, snow removal in the spring when there's extra mowing to do and field prep and stuff, that's in addition to that.
Okay, but he fit the square peg in the square hole for us? I mean, said, we'll take that, okay.
Yep.
Good.
So you want to be a bus driver?
I haven't convinced him of that yet. Working on it.
Any more discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I need a motion and a second to approve the policies as presented. Number 413, harassment violence. Number 416, drug, alcohol, and cannabis testing. 425, staff development and mentoring. 507, corporal punishment and prone restraint. 509, enrollment of non-resident students. 512, school-sponsored student publication and activities. 515, protection and privacy of pupil records. 516, student medication and telehealth. 608, instructional services, special education. That's a motion and a second.
I'll make a motion.
I'll
Motion by
second.
Sonskar, second by Trask. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Need a motion and a second to approve resolution 2024/2025-21, accepting a donation of $250 from Mount Carmel WELCA for the backpack program. That motion by Hack,
Second by Lyon.
second by Lyon. Any discussion?
Thank you.
All, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Need a motion and a second to approve the fiscal year 24 audit.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Sonskar,
Second by Lyon.
second by Lyon. Any discussion? We're moving in the right direction. Kudos.
Yeah, and that whole audit process was just so much more pleasant. Last year was just
Way better.
painful.
And I, again, took off, but kudos to Sheena for doing that, because was discussed in the finance committee meeting about the preparation work, and they had everything basically ready to go, so that was part of it that helped make it go smooth, so good job, Bill. Thank you, since you're here.
Yeah, I'd take it all.
So you could have stuck around. So, where are we? Oh, yeah. All in favor, any more discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I need a motion and a second to approve the world's best workforce plan.
I'll make that motion.
Okay. Motion by Trask,
I'll second it. Lyon.
by Lyon. Guessing there's gonna be some discussion? Or there's
No, I'm
questions
just
for a
not
while
sure
there?
how familiar I am with it, because she hadn't, you know, she, right? I mean, it's a difficult one to corral when they're changing the whole thing for you
It
again.
is, but basically there's 5 points to it. One is everybody ready for school, which would be gauging that on our kindergartners. They took out the everyone can read by 3rd grade due to the READ Act that's now required. And then the other ones that you guys really are familiar with, for example, the college and career readiness, like the activities we do with our 10th graders, taking them to Grand Forks. And then whatever other types of, like our 10th graders, when some of our local businesses come in and they spend a half a morning with them, and they have to go through like the cost of insurance, the cost of housing and all those things. And whenever we have like colleges come in, so our kids can visit with them, all those things we do for their career and college piece. And then the big one, 100%, which we have made and we stated enrolled will graduate in the spring, which they do. When you look at the state, though, I want people to understand, when you look on MDE site, their percentage for every school is based on who your ninth grade students were. So those ninth grade students who may not be with us come senior year, if there's someplace else or something else happened and they don't graduate, that counts against us. So that's why when you look at the state report card, and it's not what I'm saying it is because our goal is based on what we can do. We can work with the kids who are in our building. So I can say, since I've been here, we've had 100% of our seniors graduate.
I mean, 100% that we're here on the 1st of September, walk out with a diploma?
Well, 100% of those who are.
Stay enrolled.
Stay, yes.
Yep.
And that's not always an easy task because many of them are behind in credits. So I will say we have a lot of people here who are really working with those kids to help them get the work done so they will graduate on time. And so those are the components that you are approving tonight.
And really, the only change in that from World's Best Workforce then is the read at third grade level? I mean, is that what I'm?
Yeah, that they took that component out because of the READ Act, but also, like I said, they're adding the lifelong learner into what they're calling, what the new documents will be.
They're gonna keep a committee with public members and everything, or is that?
Yes, I'm sure they will.
That'll come back,
Yes,
okay.
I'm sure they will.
Any more questions or discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Need a motion and a second to approve resolution 2024/25-22, calling the school district general election.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Trask,
Second by Lyon.
second by Lyon. Any discussion? Kind of interesting phrasing.
That's what I'm going on the verb that, but I mean, calling it like saying, we're done, we approve, we're, okay, it's in the past. Okay.
Any more discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. 7:27, adjourned.
What does the W in ELCA stand for in the backpack program, Mount Carmel? What's the W? Evangelical Lutheran Church of America.
Women's evangelical.
Women's? Okay.
That paperwork filled out.